All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome back for another deep dive with me.
Hi, everyone.
So glad to have you with us again today, as always.
Yes.
And today we are talking all about self-belief.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, I am super excited about this one.
Me too.
I think this is something that everyone struggles with at some point in their lives.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's something that I've definitely struggled with myself.
I think it's a lifelong journey, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So we're going to be diving into a motivational podcast today called Podcast Believe.
Okay.
And we'll be dissecting it, unpacking it,
Sounds good.
figuring out, how much of this stuff is
Yeah.
real
Yeah.
and how much of it is just hype. How much of this can we actually use to make a difference in our lives?
Yeah. I mean, because we all hear it, right? Like, believe in yourself.
Yeah.
You can do anything you set your mind to.
Right, exactly.
But is it really that simple?
Is it really that easy?
Yeah.
I'm skeptical,
I mean,
but I'm also
I am too, a little bit, but I also think there's something to it.
yeah,
I think there's something to the power of belief.
for sure.
But I think it's more nuanced than just like,
Yeah.
closing your eyes and wishing for something.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is interesting is there's an area of research
Yes.
that is dedicated to this. It's called self-efficacy.
Self-efficacy.
Yes.
Have you heard of this?
Oh, I mean, that's my jam.
Yeah.
I love that stuff.
So tell us a little bit about what self-efficacy is.
Yeah, so self-efficacy is basically
For those of us who, aren't psychology nerds.
who don't, geek out about this stuff all the time.
Right.
It's basically your belief in your ability to succeed in specific situations.
Okay.
So it's not just like a general, I'm awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, I can do this.
Right.
So if you have a high self-efficacy in
Yeah.
public speaking,
Yeah.
then you're going to feel more confident
Yes.
and you're going to be more likely to actually do it.
Right. And you're going to be more likely to do it well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And so studies have shown that self-efficacy is linked to increased motivation, persistence,
Okay.
resilience, all that good stuff.
Yeah, so there's
It's not just a feel-good thing. It actually impacts
science behind this.
outcomes. Yeah.
That's so interesting. Okay, I'm starting to buy into this a little bit.
Yeah.
One of the things that the podcast talks about is
Yeah.
how believing in yourself can actually change how we see challenges.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds a bit like magic, doesn't it?
I know. It's
If you just believe in yourself,
Yeah.
then suddenly all your problems will disappear.
Right.
But obviously that's not how it works.
No, it's not magic.
So how does self-belief actually help us to kind of
Yeah.
reframe obstacles?
Yeah. I love that question.
Mm.
I think it comes down to mindset.
Mm-hmm.
When you believe in yourself, you're more likely to see challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats.
I see.
Yeah. So it's not that the challenges go away.
Right.
It's that you approach them differently.
Yes.
You're more likely to be proactive,
Yeah.
to problem solve,
Yeah.
to seek out support,
Yeah.
all those things that help you to overcome challenges.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've talked about the positive side of self-belief,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's also important to acknowledge that everyone experiences self-doubt.
Of course.
Even the most confident people,
Absolutely.
have moments where they
It's-
doubt
yeah.
themselves.
Yeah, even the top performers in the world,
Huh.
Olympians and,
Yes.
CEOs and all those people, they still have moments of self-doubt.
Right.
It's just part of being human.
Yeah, so it's not about eliminating self-doubt.
Yeah.
It's about managing it
Right.
and not letting it control you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can you think of a time, and I want the listeners to think about this too,
Yeah.
think about a time when self-doubt really held you back.
Mm-hmm.
What was going on?
Yeah, what triggered it?
Yeah.
What was the situation?
What was the situation? What were the thoughts that were going through your head, and how did it impact your actions?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good reflection.
Take a moment to think about that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that the podcast suggests
Okay.
is to focus on your strengths
Mm.
instead of your weaknesses.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of wisdom in that
I think so too.
because it's so easy to get caught up in
Yeah.
what we're not good at.
What we're lacking. Yeah.
And we forget about
All the amazing things we can do.
all the things that we are good at.
Yeah.
So how do we shift that focus?
Yeah.
How do we start to
It's a practice, right?
Yeah.
It's a conscious effort.
Yeah.
I think one thing is to just start noticing.
Okay.
When you're, beating yourself up about something,
Yes.
or you're feeling insecure,
Yeah.
just take a pause and ask yourself, like,
Yeah.
okay, what am I good at?
Right.
What are my strengths?
Mm-hmm.
And even better yet, like, what evidence do I have
Yeah.
to support that?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Like, what are the...
Because sometimes our brains like to trick us
Okay.
into thinking that we're not good at anything.
Oh, for sure.
You know?
Our brains are liars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like having that evidence
Right.
is so powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like actually writing it down.
Writing it down. Yeah. Making a list.
Making a list of your accomplishments.
Yeah.
And even small
Yeah.
accomplishments.
Small wins.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's just like, I don't know.
I made my bed today.
Right, that's a win.
Hey, that's a win.
Yeah, you got to start somewhere.
Right. It's
Yeah.
about building that momentum. Yeah. And like celebrating those wins.
Yeah, celebrating those wins.
With acknowledging them.
Don't just brush them aside.
Yeah.
Like, actually take a moment to savor them.
Yes.
And be like, hey, I did that.
Yes.
Good job, me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I struggle with is,
Right.
I'm a perfectionist.
Yeah.
And so
Ew.
it's really hard for me to
Yeah.
celebrate the small wins
Yeah.
because I'm always focused on like
What's next?
the next thing.
Well, it could be better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
It's a tough one.
how do you kind of
Yeah.
break out of that cycle?
I think it's about awareness.
Yeah.
Like just being aware
Yeah.
of that tendency
Yeah.
and then consciously choosing
Yeah.
to focus on the positive.
I got it. Yeah.
So like when you catch yourself
Yeah.
doing that perfectionist thing,
Yeah.
just stop.
Yeah.
And say like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm doing it again. What is something that I can celebrate about this,
Right.
even if it's not perfect?
Yeah.
There's always something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's always something.
Always.
And I think it's also about like giving yourself permission
Yes.
to not be perfect.
Yes. Permission to be human.
Yeah. We're all human.
We're not robots.
We're not robots.
We're allowed to make mistakes.
Yes.
We're allowed to have flaws.
Yes.
It's what makes us interesting.
Right.
It's what makes us unique.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, so the podcast also talks about the importance of taking action.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that I think is really important
Yeah.
because it's easy to get stuck in our heads.
Yeah. Analysis paralysis. Yeah.
And like overthink things
Think it.
and never actually do anything.
Yeah.
So how do we
Take a step.
move from like
Any step.
the thinking to the doing,
Yeah. Yeah, I think setting small goals is really helpful. Because when you have a big, audacious goal, it can feel really overwhelming.
Right.
And it can be hard to know where to start.
Yeah.
So breaking it down into smaller, more manageable steps
Okay.
can make it feel a lot less daunting.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And then each time you achieve a small goal,
Yeah.
it gives you a boost of confidence.
Right.
And it motivates you to keep going.
So it's like a positive feedback loop.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the podcast also mentions asking for help.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is something that a lot of people
Struggle with.
struggle with, yeah.
Yeah.
Because it can feel like
the sign of weakness.
the sign of weakness, yeah.
Yeah.
But it's actually not.
No,
It's a sign of strength.
it is.
So how do we kind of reframe that?
Yeah, I think it's about recognizing that
Yeah.
no one has all the answers.
Right.
We all need help sometimes.
Yeah.
And asking for help is a way of showing that you're committed to your growth.
Okay.
That you're willing to learn. Yeah.
And that you're not afraid to be vulnerable.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think vulnerability is often seen as like
A weakness.
a weakness. Yeah.
It's actually a strength.
It's a superpower.
It is a superpower.
Yeah.
Because it allows you to connect with people
Yeah.
on a deeper level.
Yes.
And to build trust.
Yeah.
And to create meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this has been a really interesting deep dive.
It has.
I'm feeling very inspired.
I am too.
And I think the biggest takeaway for me is that self-belief is not a fixed trait.
No.
It's something that we can cultivate
Absolutely.
and develop over time.
It's like a muscle.
Yeah.
You got to work it out.
You got to work it out.
Yeah.
And the more we work it out,
The stronger it gets.
the stronger it gets.
Yeah.
I love that analogy.
Yeah.
So any final thoughts for our listeners?
Yeah, I would just say, like, don't underestimate the power of your own belief.
Okay.
You are capable of amazing things.
But you have to believe it first.
You have to believe it first.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
Yes, thank you for having me.
I hope you learned something,
You too.
and I hope you're feeling inspired.
Yes, go out there and believe in yourself.
Believe in yourselves.
Yeah.
We'll see you next time.
Bye, everyone. Bye.